Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Sam here, and today I'm very excited to present the Wesley Vissers episode. So today we've got my interview with Wesley, followed by the seminar that he gave at Zone Gym on his visit here this weekend. And then there's some sections with a few comments on training and taking some Q&As. Now, in those later sections, the camera overheated, so I'm going to have to explain the bits that cut out there. But we've got the full interview coming up, the full seminar coming up, and then my wrap-up at the end of the weekend with Wesley. So this is very exciting, as this is focusing on Classic Physique, sometimes on my channel, and Wesley has just won the Arnold Classic in Ohio and in the UK for 2024, which really ranks him as number 2 in the world in classic bodybuilding. So over to the interview. This is just for the YouTube channel, because you built a lot of your reputation with YouTube, so I'm really grateful and excited to show the video to my viewers, my subscribers, and I thought a few more in-depth questions about your coaching. And with Stefan, I was really curious to, obviously that's brought you forwards that bit more. I wonder what was going on in the coaching process, particularly in the last 10 to 12 weeks that was different with Stefan Kinsel than with anyone else you've worked before, and what's changed in your processes of preparation or the way that you measure things, or anything technical that would be useful to my viewers that are interested in contest prep.
Yeah, most of all, the last 10 to 12 weeks, some people even start 12 weeks out, for example, like contest prep. But I learned with Stefan, start soon enough that by 10 weeks out, the upper body already almost looks like ready to go on stage. Because for me personally, and every client will be different, for me, the upper body looks like ready to go on stage, and then the glutes still need to begin cutting down. So I know I need enough time for that to happen, so don't be fooled by the illusion of that very good look and pump in the gym, because you're never looking at your glutes in the gym. And that's why I take daily progress pictures, I send it to him, and he's then not even bothered by the upper body. He's just looking only at the glutes and hamstrings and seeing how those progress in accordance with how much I weigh, how much we have left until the weight limit, and my progress in the gym. So that's how we kind of do the check-ins, and to make sure I come in shredded by that part of my body. Because the upper body, I mean, the striations in my upper chest will be there almost when I begin the prep already. Just like on Michael Dabu or on Urs already have striations in the glutes before they begin. Like even more striations.
It's calculated to what would come in last for you, and for you that happens to be the hamstrings.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's what I like to do, and then you know for sure if those are dry, the rest of the body will be shredded as well.
And in terms of measuring that down, that is the daily pictures, or are you doing other measurements, like you mentioned a DEXA scan before? How often would you do that, for example, or do you have any other measurements that you do to judge how quickly you're coming in fat loss-wise?
So one measurement I used to do was like literally a skin fold caliper measurement on several sides of my body, like the lower love handles, basically on the lower back and the glutes. But I haven't done that lately, because now I know which look in the picture and which weight, how it correlates with each other. But I used
more
to do
calibrated
that.
To your own look.
Yeah, but I used to do that to see is my glute at least as lean now so many weeks out with, for example, 5 millimeters compared to like previous prep. And then I know objectively, okay, we're on the right track. But you can check that every now and then.
It's really interesting you've mentioned that, because that's what I do with my athletes. I don't need to do it for myself, because like you, I can see what I look, but with ones that I'm coaching, it will be weekly skin fold measurements from, well, weekly anyway, even in off-season, but then bring them in daily.
It correlates to body fat, but it's not an exact thing.
Not exact.
Just go for the millimeters and that's it.
Don't
try to calculate anything off of it.
That's what we do. We don't do percent. I try and get them to as close to 4 and below, like everywhere, whole body, and that's the goal.
When you reach that, and like preferably below 2 on the arms,
of course.
They have to be the stripes on the striations and the triceps, then you're golden for sure.
Yeah. And I heard you mention stuff about with your calves, and you felt that they kind of regressed a little bit, and that you'd need to be focusing on that in particular with the time that you've got. Is there anything that you think has caused that regression, or is there anything that you're going to change in your training to like really address that with the time that you've got? That you mentioned on calves.
Oh, the calves.
Calves, yeah.
Oh, the calves, yeah. I have had lower back injuries in the past, which I think targeted a specific nerve which innervates the calves. So it's on both sides, so it's not like a local thing.
Yeah.
So I thought about what could it be, and then I was like, I once in a leg press I had something happen to my lower back, or years ago in the squat. So I thought maybe it takes a while when the nerve isn't working properly for the effect to show on the muscle, because my calves were huge.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's not that they're small, but they've regressed now past what they were before. So I bought an electrical stimulating device to stimulate the calves from the outside to give them the innervation that normally would come from my nervous system. Now I force it on the calves when I train them. I've done it a few times, and it actually resurrected the feeling in my inner calf, which is the only part that was affected. And now when I do a calf press, I can get a very good pump again in that part. So it took a few weeks of training with those electrical stimulating devices, but after that I train calves no problem anymore.
Brilliant. And last question, do you think that the way that you've been recognised with the Arnold Classic wins will influence how Classic Physique is actually seen at the moment? Because my interpretation of it is that it's kind of subjective in terms of what we view as classic. Because if you look at, like, you know, the late 70s and the early 80s, you know, there's a lot of different looks that you could consider classic. And I think that this whole thing of, you know, the glutes being shredded being the focus is, you know, just one little thing and it's a distraction. More lately, I've been disappointed that it's just whoever has the thinnest waistline is considered classic. Whereas to me, the full classic look is like the big chest, the really good arms, like certain posing choices and things like that. What do you think that this will change, or is changing in the way that you're getting recognised now?
Honestly, I think I'm very fortunate to maybe to have been the one who put this change in Classic Physique now.
I should hope so.
Since the Arnold, because Tyler Mannion himself, the head judge judging me at that show, he said he literally began the explanation of why I won with, yes, Wesley does not have the smallest waist, or Ramon is a smaller waist, or is a smaller waist, but he compensated for it with a way bigger back, width and delts, and just width overall, which made his V-taper as good as the others. But the V-taper is good, but because I add more muscle, I'm more muscular on top.
Yeah.
So it's like the same.
It's coming more from structure and muscle than
exactly.
Like
so it's the hard work that I put into my physique that brought the victory, and not the genetics of the waist. But that is the beautiful thing about Classic. It is possible, so you now can see that with a physique that is naturally not as narrow with the waist as those guys, I could still pull off the win by forcing that V-taper on my body, by just hammering the back width and the shoulders and just the upper body in general. And then in proportion to having bigger legs now, it just worked out to be a victorious physique on stage. So it is in your own power to change your physique for the better, and even win over those genetically elite Classic Physique guys if you just work hard enough for it and be smart about it.
Yeah, and that's what we're all trying to do, and I really appreciate your time today, mate. I think, you know, for everyone here at our gym, and for my viewers on here, a few extra questions, a bit of extra time, I really appreciate that. And I'm going to end the video, but I've been practicing. I'm going to try, and then you're going to do it properly. Always remember, stay gold.
Don't forget to stay good.
Nice one, perfect. No problem. Cheers, mate.
I'll see what I'll do. All right. First of all, thank you very much for coming. It really is an honor for me to be able to do this. This for me is now, I think, day number 6 of the UK Olympia Tour, and I love the UK. I've been here since 2016, 17. First time I hit the Body Power. I think some of you might have gone there yourself as well in Birmingham. And I fell in love right away. I mean, I trained back in the gym with the owner today. It was an amazing workout, and you can taste the atmosphere here, the hardcore vibe, like the seriousness that the UK bodybuilding scene has. And you know, I come from the Netherlands, hence the Dutch oak. But you might think when you train here around gyms in the UK that it's normal to have this atmosphere and this vibe, but you should consider yourself lucky because it's really unique. I mean, just look at the murals on the wall, all the Mr. Olympians are there. It's amazing, and it's a very unique thing in the Netherlands and honestly throughout the world. So whoever is training here or in a different gym like this, I mean, it's awesome. I've had a great workout and a great. Oh yeah.
Not on microphone.
Yeah. So don't waste that opportunity by really enjoying your time in the gym here. So before I really get started, I'm just going to talk about a little bit about training. Maybe I'll have you guys get up as well to show you a little bit of the exercises I like to do, how to do them, about nutrition, of course, one of my favorite subjects, supplementation and how I do the competitions. But most importantly, you're sitting here right now, I'm here right now, so I'm pretty sure you came here with some questions, maybe a bunch of questions. Or even if you think you don't have a question, make sure to ask them now, because, you know, right now is your chance. It might be the only chance, who knows. I'll be more often in the UK, of course, but right now is your chance. You've come here, you've done the effort to be here. So trust me, no matter what question you have, even if you think it's irrelevant, if you have it, it is relevant to you. And other people can learn from it. So don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to interrupt me as well when I'm speaking, because I know I can speak quite a lot. So just make sure that whenever you have a question, you let me know. So a little bit about myself. Of course, I'm from the Netherlands, and since when I was 14 years old, I started bodybuilding for the first time. I'm 31 now, so if you do a quick calculation, that is 17 years of training. And it still surprises me whenever I think about it. More than half of my life, I've already been in the gym, working out. And I still feel this is just the beginning of something great is going to happen. Of course, I won, and I'm very happy to be able to say this, the Arnold Classic in Ohio, but also in the UK. So a back-to-back Arnold Classic victory is just an amazing experience. Not only that, but I've been striving to become a better and better classic bodybuilder. I've been a classic bodybuilder before Classic Physique was announced, which, by the way, was also for the first time in the UK, in London, right here in London, so that was also amazing. But winning the Arnold Classic Ohio and then the UK, what do they both have in common? Arnold Schwarzenegger was there himself. I mean, right when you walk into this door in this gym, you can see him. And there's a good reason, because he, in my opinion, is the legend and the idol of this sport. So, you know, when I am being awarded the prize by none other than Arnold himself, it was just an unbelievable experience. I mean, I did not expect that first competition to go so well, to beat so many top Olympians. And then, of course, that alone is already a victory. But then for my childhood dream to come true, and for Arnold himself to give me the trophy was just incredible. And I will forever look back fondly on those memories. I will never forget it. But at the same time, that did put me into a position of a lot of momentum and belief in myself that the Olympia is now not just going to be, okay, Chris Bohm said on the wall right there, he's going to be number one, who's going to be number two. Just like what I said before the Arnold Classic in Ohio, it's going to be a battle between me and Ramon. It's going to be a battle between me and Chris. And the most important thing is, let's bring that Olympia trophy back to Europe for once.
Hey!
Yeah. Why should it always have to be overseas, so far away? Let's bring it here. And let's keep it here for a while, because the Dutch oak is here to stay. That's for sure. So, of course, it's always going to be a challenge, going to be a battle. But the reason why I'm saying all this is because I want there to be a hype. I want there to be a nice atmosphere around the Olympia, instead of always the boring thinking, oh, the champion is going to win, and yeah, I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to try to beat him. No, I truly believe it's possible. So it's going to be an insane battle. So maybe if you're not going to the Olympia, I would really watch that live stream. I really would. I mean, I know it's going to be a little late in the night maybe, but it's going to be worth it, because I'm going to make sure it's going to be a very interesting battle on that stage. So that's amazing. So when I was 14, I started training for the first time in the gym. My dad taught me everything about especially the mind-muscle connection. So a lot of the machines in this gym, for example, I'm calling them machines and not free weights yet, because I wasn't allowed to do free weights yet. Because 14 was the first legal age that I was allowed to train in the gym, because before that age, they thought it would stunt growth. Oh, let me already teach you the first thing of the day, that is already a myth. I mean, young children, of course, responsibly, if they work out, if they train with weights, it's only going to help their development in being strong, more bone density, more muscle mass. You know, whenever they fall, they won't actually cry. They're like, oh, whatever, I am used to way more than this. So they will become more tough. And but that aside, when I was 14, I trained with machines. And the thing that machines teach you is they have, you know, you can move the handles on a chest press from point A to point B. You think initially that's the arms moving, but actually what you want to train is the chest. You want to feel the stretch and the contraction, and it taught me to actually do this from a very young age already, the mind-muscle connection, being aware of the muscles in your body, where they are. So once you are aware of, okay, this chest press, that's the chest, after a few sessions, you're already able to contract that muscle on your own without any resistance on it, without any tension on it. That gives you the ability to use that muscle whenever you want during an exercise. So I was taught this first, and that really put me ahead of a lot of other young people who go in the gym first, and it takes them like maybe 2 to 3 years to struggle with finding what works for me, how do I really work out, how do I not injure myself, what is full range of motion and stuff like this. So I did this for a few years, and when I was 20 years old, which was around 6 years later, I was actually offered to do my first bodybuilding competition. I moved from a small farmer's town in the Netherlands, and I never saw a bodybuilder in my life before. So I was like, well, I'm not really making that much progress. You know, what I was used to is watching YouTube and seeing Ronnie Coleman and Jake Cutler doing bodybuilding competitions. So when somebody asked me, do you want to do a bodybuilding competition? I was like, well, there's no way I can win this or even compete. I never even thought about it, because you got to be super big to do these competitions. I never even realized that there were amateur competitions in the Netherlands as well. Because the guy who offered me to do a competition, he showed me a local competition poster that was hung up on the wall in the gym, and you could see the guys competing there in a lineup, and I was like, wait a second, if I stand with those guys, maybe I can even compete with them and maybe even win. So just like the owner of Macroflex Gym offered Ronnie Coleman to train there for free to do a competition, that guy said, if you will do this competition, I'm going to coach you for free. So as a young 20-year-old student, we don't have any money, at least I did not have a lot. I wasted it all on pollock fish from the supermarket, frozen fish and rice and just the basics, but already every single day there was a lot of money for me. So anything that was free, I was willing to do a lot for. So he coached me for free for that competition, and I did it as a 20-year-old in 2013, and I happened as a junior to win the overall in that competition, unexpectedly going in blind and knowing what to expect. But once you win one time, you think, okay, let's do it again, let's try it again. And the year afterwards, that's when I took things really seriously with training, supplementation, nutrition, and I actually was able to gain 14 kilos of body weight during the prep for that show. So from 20 to 21, I went from a skinny junior basically to a pretty big 21-year-old, and I was able to win like what in my eyes were the grown-ups in that show. So everybody who competed there, if you win the overall, that means you beat everybody who was there that day. So in 1 year, I moved from being an unknown amateur to being a rank A amateur in the Netherlands, which is the highest level you can achieve. But then I was stuck because, you know, I'm tall, my body weight was climbing to be a super heavyweight. And, you know, a super heavyweight, which means above 100 kilos or 225 pounds, I didn't really feel at home there because I needed to be so much bigger to compete with those guys. And I always was a fan of Arnold and the old school guys. I actually had to wait doing proper competitions until that special date, March 2018, here in a Royal London Pro competition, where Classic Physique came to Europe for the very first time ever. And that's when me and my coach, at the time, we decided, okay, let's go for this class. This is the class. And one of the biggest benefits of the class is finally the posing trunks got a little bigger again. Well, the thing I liked the least about bodybuilding was the very small posing trunks. I think no one who does bodybuilding is like, oh, this is comfortable. I feel very confident in this. So, of course, it's meant to show as much muscle as possible, but I still was like, this just feels weird to wear. So then, finally, Classic Physique trunks came about, and they were designed to mimic the classic trunks that Arnold and all the other guys back in the 70s used to wear. And the purpose of that trunk was to hide the glutes instead of showing them off. So that was the initial idea of Classic Physique. It's about the physique and not only the conditioning that you can find in the glutes of those guys to see, okay, he has more conditioned glutes and he's going to win. I mean, that's, to me, not really bodybuilding. It's really about the physique and the flow of the physique. So that's when I did the Royal London Pro, won my pro card, and that is truly when my career actually started in Classic Physique. After that, I won my pro debut in Chicago, and honestly, again, we went to America, and by the way, that was the very first time I took an airplane in my whole entire life, because as I mentioned, I didn't really have a lot of money to spare. The holidays we did were close by car. But once we had the opportunity to do all of this with bodybuilding, we were like, okay, let's just invest this back into bodybuilding. So we took the plane to Chicago, not expecting anything, and I happened to win the pro debut there. And when I was backstage, it was like, who is now doing the Classic Physique class? Because you had men's physique, Classic Physique, but trust me, all of them were just huge in my eyes. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I can't recognize who is in my class. Everybody is big. So it was like foreign to me, because those right now are champions, because you can only do a pro show if you won a pro qualifier, which means you won overall against a lot of guys. So all of them were already at a high level. So I was going up against them. And when I won that show, me and my coach were like, did you expect this? I was like, no, not at all. But we won. And but here's where Classic Physique changed. Because I won that show not being in the very best conditioning, which means I wasn't in a super low body fat. Still, it was low enough to show all the shapes of the muscles and the aesthetics, but it wasn't like I was showing deep hamstring details or anything like that. And the second guy did have that, but they thought I had a more classic physique. So winning that show with that conditioning, I thought, wait a second, they're actually going to judge these shows with the 70s conditioning, with the 70s rules, how they looked back then. I was very happy because finally, no more need to dig deep, so down basically to get your body fat so low that usually you get flat or you lose some muscle, you're afraid of losing, sacrificing what you worked for in the off season. So I was super happy. But then the truth was revealed at the Olympia. I walked backstage, it was only a few months later, in Las Vegas. It was like a room quite as big as where you're sitting in right now. And I saw, laying down on the floor, relaxing, like Brian Ansley, Arash Rabar, Chris Bumstead, just name them, all the big names, of course, the best in the world were laying down there. And when I got on stage, you could see, okay, this is a different level. These are the best in the world. There's nothing better than this. Everything you're seeing, there's nowhere in the world there's a better combination of aesthetics, conditioning, mass for Classic Physique. So I was really out-conditioned in that show. And then I realized I was, by the way, shared 14th place. So coming on a lot of competitions where you get straight firsts, to going shared 14th, that's where I thought, okay, we have really some work to do here. We really got to change this up. And the guy, one of the judges in the elevator of the hotel we were staying in, it happened to be a judge that, we were in the elevator, he came in, and the one thing he said, you've got everything to win, except your conditioning. So that really taught to me, okay, right now, Classic Physique isn't really classic bodybuilding from back then, but it's more conditioning. It's basically the shape of back then with aesthetics and just being as dry as you can possibly be. So I did the Arnold Classic in March the following year, and I got more conditioned, but I was still 10th place. And I was like, what can we do? I think I'm very close to the weight limit. I'm conditioned enough, but I still was 10th. And not even in the world, but 10th in the Arnold Classic, where Chris and Brian, a lot of those guys didn't even compete. So it meant that I still didn't really improve that much in the rankings. And that's when I decided to be my own coach. So I made a lot of mistakes, apparently, as I learned through the process of my previous coach. There were things like you kept drinking too much water up until the day of the show. I remember this very clearly. I was getting tanned, and my coach told me, just keep drinking water to keep flushing it out. And there was a guy there who was also competing, and he said, I was drinking from a bottle of water, and he said, if you're serious about this, you shouldn't have been drinking water for a few hours by now. And that really shocked me. I was like, damn, this is the pro level. There's someone like this telling me this in America, a very foreign country for me, and I'm like, standing here, is this coach the right fit for me? Is he maybe too old school? Is he maybe not really realizing what the rules of the day are? So I was feeling guilty drinking that water over there, and the guy was already like dehydrated for a full day. And yeah, it did show on stage. I depleted myself of all the minerals and electrolytes by drinking too much water. And my coach also told me no salt, because that will show more detail. All of these are old school rules. Yes, old school is nice in the physiques, but not always in the science and how it applies to progress, what you want to show on stage. So I decided to coach myself, apply those lessons, because remember, it's not a failure when you do something with it. Then it's a lesson you learn from. And I applied the lesson by restricting the water a little bit, not as many carbs, being in a better condition, and actually pumping up backstage with salt. And that's when I finally achieved the pump I always experience when I'm training in the gym. I was like, if I can take this pump to the stage with me, then I could win. But it never happened. But until I started loading with salt and I was conditioned enough, everything came together, and I finally won the Romania Pro in 2019, where I won for the first time on my very own and qualified for the Olympia once again, and proved to everybody that it was not a fluke, but it was actually possible for me to do better in this class. And by the way, in 2019, there was someone called Greg Doucette. And yeah, it rings some bells for some of you. He's a very big YouTuber who says he's being very transparent on his videos. And he told me back then, Wesley Vissers is never going to win a pro show again. He's never going to qualify again. And that was literally like a week before the competition. And even more, I went to the bathroom and I met someone there. He told me, before the pre-judging, before going on stage, did you see that video of Greg telling you could never win a pro show again? It was right before going on stage. I was like, no, I didn't see it. I did see the title, but I purposely did not click on it, because what good will it do me now? So I happily went on stage and I won the competition, qualified for the Olympia. And then fast forward, of course, a couple of years. Back then I got number 11 in the Olympia, again on number 11, then number 8, number 7, and now we made this big jump in Classic Physique by winning those incredible Arnold Classic victories. And now me and my new coach, Stefan Kienzel, the boss of Outlaw, who also coaches like James Hollingshead from the UK, Nathan Diasha, a lot of other big names like Martin Fitzwater, who just, I think today, was announced, or yesterday, that he was second at the New York Pro, where Nick Walker won, who is like arguably a top 5 in the world. So let's just say the coach that I have right now is very experienced at the highest level with the protocols and rules of today. And you can see how it really applied to my physique at the Arnold Classic. Does anybody have, at this moment, any questions? No matter what it is. Yes?
So you've just done the two big wins, and you've got the Olympia. Is there, because that sort of 6 months, I guess.
Mhm.
And like just until his cycle will be like years. Does that affect the way you plan for that show? Because you've got a shorter period than maybe like this month. So, or is this better because you're in good shape?
Yeah, so actually, I did the 2023 Mr. Olympia, and the difference between that show and the Arnold Classic, if you count everything together, I had maybe a max of 9 weeks of eating up a little bit more, and then I already had to start dieting for the Arnold Classic again. So in 9 weeks, I could already make quite some progress in a short time to showcase what you can do in between the Mr. Olympia and the Arnold Classic in terms of peaking better, being fuller, filling in some gaps in the physique, and those small details and changes already brought a huge change at the Arnold Classic itself. Now after the Arnold Classic UK, I basically have a lot more time, as you say, like almost 6 months pretty much, to prepare for the Mr. Olympia. And as you say also correctly, I stay pretty lean automatically because, you know, I have a weight limit. I'm still a few pounds under, but there's no need for me to gain like 20 kilos, for example, because I would have to lose everything again anyway. But there's also no time to gain that much weight because, you know, it will be mostly fat if you do it so quickly. So in the 6 months, I just slowly gain weight, slowly become stronger in the gym, which is correlated with increasing in muscle mass, especially in the weaker body parts. And I think in Classic Physique it's all about, if you look just a tiny bit different in a certain muscle group, you will look hugely different on stage next to someone else. And the last thing is, I've never actually stood next to Chris Bumstead in my life to being directly compared to him. And it was the same case with Ramon. And until that happened, then people could finally see the real difference there. So now I'm hoping, and I'm going for it, that the same thing is going to happen at the Olympia. So staying in better shape allows me to actually extend the amount of time I have to grow and shorten the amount of time that I have to lose the weight because you're still in better shape. So you still have less muscle mass, less fat mass left to lose. So that gives me a big advantage. And now that we know exactly how deep we need to go, just like with the Arnold Classic, we're going to go just one step further for the Mr. Olympia, get just a tad more conditioned, but remain with the fullness and at the same time get more muscle mass just on my frame in general in these few months. Because, you know, in bodybuilding, a lot is possible in a short time because it's really a visual sport. I don't really have to gain like 3-4 kilos of body weight to see a difference, only just a few hundred grams here and there. Just imagine on a plate you have a few hundred grams of steak, just put it anywhere in your body, it's gonna be a big difference. So, yeah, we're actually gonna have steak tonight as well, so that's why. But the difference is gonna be there, and yeah, I'm just super excited. As for people wondering, my weight limit is 249 pounds, and on stage I weigh around 245 pounds, and right now I'm around 25 pounds heavier than I was on stage already. But it's not like I'm standing here as a fat slob, for example. So there is some quality that is being added, hopefully. And when you extract the water and the fat, I'm just, not just hoping, but I'm pretty sure there will be quality muscle mass left, and I will still be right below that weight limit. So I don't have to stress about the weigh-ins at the Olympia. So that's gonna be the plan. Any other questions? Yes?
Yeah, hi Wesley. Do you remember your amateur height and weight limits
Yes.
when you qualified?
Yeah, so I've been measured at 189 centimeters or 190, so 6'2" and 3/4 or 6'3".
Yeah.
That's how small the difference was. And the difference in between that would allow me to weigh either, for example, 249 pounds or like 255 pounds. So it's a huge difference. But as an amateur, I was still measured at right below 6'3", and I was allowed to weigh 108 kilos, I think 242 pounds back then. And the funny thing about this, I was a super heavyweight right before doing Classic Physique, and I was actually already 1 kilo over that limit at the day of the competition that I did before in 2017. So I went to a DEXA scan And this is a scan that scans your body to see how much body fat do you have left. And I did the scan, and it told me, even if you have 0% body fat, you still will be too heavy. So I was like, how am I going to do this? The last thing I want to do is sacrifice muscle. But as maybe all of you already know, what comprises the most inside of a muscle?
Water.
Exactly, water. So with water, you can do a whole lot. So more than 70% of your muscle is pure water, which means that if you manipulate it just a little bit, it's going to drop your weight quite dramatically right before the weigh-in, and then you can fill up again, and then I reach the weigh-in. So I only had to diet down that deep for one show because I fortunately won it, and then I was allowed to weigh 4 kilos more after that. So I still think it's a little strange that there's a difference for the amateur and the pros, but you know, it worked out perfectly for me. And it was a blessing and a curse. Because when you have to dig deep down, what happens automatically, you will get shredded. Because you know, the last thing you want is the fat to be the problem of your weight limit. So I got below 108 kilos in London, and then all of a sudden I was allowed 4 kilos more. So what do you think as a bodybuilder? Oh, I can gain 4 kilos for Chicago. And that's exactly where I went wrong with the lessening in conditioning in that show. I still won it, so that kind of was like a wrong message. Hey, you actually did something right. At the Olympia, I was punished for it. But that's a lesson that the weight is just a number. And one more funny fact about weight. In 2018, at the Mr. Olympia, I weighed more than I did at the Arnold Classic, which I won. So 6 years difference, and it's not like I didn't make progress because the weight was almost the same, but I lost a lot more fat, gained more muscle. So if you stand on a scale, the number is still saying the same thing, but what I'm trying to teach here is that the scale is just one little tool in a very big toolbox you have to assess how much progress are you making. Mostly when you are training in the gym and you're getting stronger in a certain muscle group and you see what you did a year ago, for example. If you can do 10 kilos more on a chest press or 15 kilos more on a squat, that is an objective measurement that tells you there's more muscle mass here, because how are you going to lift that weight otherwise if your form has always been good? So that is a really important tool that I like to use in the gym to assess, am I getting better or not? But most importantly, what are we all doing it for? This thing right behind me, the mirror. You want to stand in the mirror or take pictures and actually see a difference from one year to another. And that's what I've been doing a whole lot, especially during a prep, literally every single day. I'm not saying you should do this, but at least once a month, trust me, if your goal is to make progress and you're working so hard for it, the last thing you want to do is be like disappointed into thinking you're not making progress. Well, in reality, you are, but you can't see it because you see yourself every day. You're used to seeing yourself, so very small changes you can't really perceive. But if you see yourself month to month, you will see a big change, trust me. If you're doing everything right, you want that discipline that you're showing to be worth something and to be visible in the pictures. Any other questions? Yes?
Hi, a mindset question. So being one of the top athletes in the world and also knowing a lot of other top athletes in the world, what would you say have you guys got in common when it comes to mindset? What do you have that other people who would like to be you don't have?
Yeah, so mindset of being, still sounds strange of being one of the best in the world, and maybe that's exactly it, is maybe also stay humble in it. So not try to think about always trying to be the best. Like, of course, I'm very motivated to beat Chris Bumstead and stuff, but I'm not looking in the mirror and looking at myself, look at the number 2 in the world over there. So, that's not what I'm thinking. Passion comes first. I started working out because it's fun. And that should always be the foundation and the core of why you're doing anything. Never do something for the attention or the fame or even the money it might give you if it's not your passion and your drive to do something. So that should be number one, and then it will never feel like a job. And for me, when I first started bodybuilding, the first few months it was actually boring because I didn't see any progress. I was like training in the gym, doing quite a lot of effort, but I didn't really see any changes because bodybuilding, as we all know, it takes a while to see changes in muscle mass. But after a few months, like more than 6 months, I started to see changes. I got stronger in the gym, and then it became fun. So after a few years, the progress will slow down a little bit. This ties back to taking the pictures. If you can see progress in one way or another, you will keep being motivated to keep going, because that to me is the fun part. And also the mindset is something I said earlier as well. You know, I've lost a lot of competitions as well. And I could think back in 2018 being 14th, pretty much last place at the Olympia, that maybe this sport is not for me. I thought I was going to do very well, because to be honest, if you win everything first, then your whole family came with me to think, I'm not going to miss it this time because he's going to win again. And then to be pretty much be blown off the stage by everybody, and it could really be a big, you know, demotivation for you if you're then all of a sudden losing, and losing pretty hard after winning. And then I kept losing a couple of times after that as well. But the thing is, and this is what I always say, you find out what kind of a person you are the next morning when you wake up. Are you motivated again to work on your weak points and what you could have done better? Or are you defeated and think, oh, I should have done better and they did it wrong? Or will you look at, okay, what is the reason? What could be the reason why I didn't win? Or why that guy beat me? Just be objective. Even if you don't agree initially, you have to trust that there's always something you can pick from that person that he could have over you. It doesn't even have to be the physique, but also maybe the way he carries himself, the smile he has, while you maybe look very stern on stage or angry, or like the presentation in general. That could already be better. And one example of this is about a year ago, a little more, in actually not a year ago actually, but in Dubai Pro. I was third there, and I really thought I could win. And I really even thought when I saw the pictures, maybe I really should have won. But then I looked deeper. 2 people beat me. It was Raf Diesel, everybody knows him, Terence Ruffin. He actually won the Arnold Classic once also. And Fabio from Brazil. Fabio, he was second, he beat me, and I looked at the pictures, I was like, all the poses, front of a bicep, side chest, favorite classic pose, I thought, I kind of beat him here. So I beat him at more poses than the others. But then I saw the back double biceps. He just had a better back than me. And then still you're like, oh, but I have other muscle groups that are better. But no, this is the mistake a lot of people make. The result already happened. So you can't change that, but you can change what you can do with what happened. I see he has a better back. Yeah, even a much, some more striations in the glutes. And that was it. But I still saw those things he had over me, and I was like, I'm motivated to improve upon this. I'm never going to go on stage without the striations anymore in the glutes, and I'm going to train the back even harder than before. Because apparently, for some reason, it was still enough to beat me. Because that's what I saw. And then you have Raf Diesel. His physique was in pretty much every single way a smaller version of what I was. So it could not have been the muscle mass. Not even the conditioning that he had was better. But one thing he did beat me on was presentation. His posing style and how gracious he was on stage. So if you look at the static pictures, you might think Wesley beats him. But if you actually were there and you see the videos, you can see the way he moves. That's what could have persuaded the judges who are a fan of that they say, oh, this is actually more classic than somebody who's bigger and maybe more dry. So I just look at this, and there are many more examples, but then I take that into account and say, presentation is improved, and my back needs to be better, and with that I go to the next show. And that's, if you have that mindset, you will always become better in some way. So, and also the best thing to do is, if you're ever disappointed in yourself, always compare yourself to you. So always look at where you came from, especially at the beginning. I mean, you can be so proud of where we all started and where we are now. The fact that we are even sitting here right now in a gym already means we made the right decision of working on ourselves, and that the fact that you are disciplined enough to make that step is already something to be proud of, and that to keep doing it that's just another step you can be proud of, and that just keeps ramping up every time. So that's the kind of mindset that I like to have, to keep improving, and just mostly have fun with all of it. So don't be down and frustrated or angry, because it doesn't grant you anything that you can work with. So I hope that answers it a little bit.
Thank you.
Any other questions right now? All right, I think we should all stand up, and we're gonna go to a couple of machines, and I'd like to show you guys some little tricks. On a computer for a long time. I used to be a gamer, so I know all about this. Being on a computer for several hours, putting all night in as well. So I used to have front delt problems on top of wanting to bench press all the time and not really focusing too much on the rear delts. Because what happens, if the front delt is stronger than the rear delt, it will pull harder on the joint than the rear delt will. So it pulls it tries to pull it out of the socket more than the rear delt will. So there's an imbalance, and that will cause front delt pain, which is, something a lot of people deal with, including myself. One way to fix this is with a reverse fly, and the amount of volume you do on this should be quite high. 4 sets, at least 15 reps. So the amount of weight, it can go to 100 kilos, but there's no way you should ever need to do this amount of weight. I personally, maybe 35 kilos on this one would be the max, because I want to hit 15 or more reps on this, because this is something I've learned. The smaller a muscle group is, the more of a pump you want to create in that muscle group, because it will isolate the muscle group from the others. If you would do this too heavy, what happens then? Who can answer this? Which muscle would try to take over from the rear delts if you're doing this one too heavy?
Traps.
The traps, exactly. And guess what? The traps are a very big muscle group. They're far stronger. If you wanted, you could maybe do 100 kilos with this if you use the traps. We want to use the rear delts. So I have a little trick on this. So first,
Now what we missed in this segment here with the pec deck reverse flies for the rear delts there, Wesley was just showing how if you hold the handles as close together with your hands as close together as possible, rather than where the handles actually are, just put your thumbs round and right in the middle there, you can get a little bit more stretch on the bottom part of the movement, and that's what he was demonstrating as one of his tricks for best isolating the rear delts in that exercise there.
we are at a seated row, and it's a slightly different seated row than usual. It might look normal. When you see this pulley, it's a bit higher than usual. Normally it would be actually right here. And what we actually want is when you use a cable and you know which muscle you're working, you want the cable to be parallel to the muscle that's working, which basically means you want to try to have this cable parallel to the arm that's moving back. Because just imagine if the cable is going down, it's going to send a strange force through something that actually wants to row in a straight way, which means you're losing a lot of energy going towards the wrong thing. What we're doing here is a row, and you have two things in the back, generally, what we can train. Width and thickness. What do we think we're going to train with the row here? Thickness, exactly. And the most popular exercise for the traps, by the way, would be a shrug. Where I'm going with this is that the traps, those are actually mostly responsible for the thickness of the back. So you actually don't train the traps efficiently at all with some shrugs. I actually have not done shrugs in many years, and I hope that my traps are a little good enough to be representative of good development in them. But how do you really train the traps is by retracting the shoulder blades. So if you really want to develop and look at the cable, it's exactly straight, and my upper arm as well, which makes sure whenever I now squeeze traps, I don't have to think about anything but the traps doing the work. If it came from too low, it would just feel strange. It would cause my lower back to do more effort. But here, I really focus on stretching the trap out, the rhomboids, the back thickness right here, feeling a good stretch, then going all the way back. But here, this is the magic, Because I can do this, for example, and now my shoulder blades are barely retracting. I'm not training the upper back, I'm not training the back fitness. It's about doing the row and the retraction at the same time. And it's literally this retraction, which you can actually almost do like this as well. These are called calso shrugs. For example, if you do a row like this, go all the way to almost failure, and when you can't do a row anymore with your arms, you finish it off with the traps like this. And that will cause a lot of back thickness to occur. So the real lesson here is that the traps are the bulk of the mass of the back thickness, and the best way to train the traps is to truly, when you're doing a row, be able to retract the shoulder blade. And actually this exercise right here, this is a chest supported T-bar row. This one did not have a chest support. What happens when we get a chest support? It means we can drive our chest against the support. This can also be like a straight bench, for example. My gym is not as fancy as this one yet, so I have to work with a lot of cables and benches. So I set up a bench just like this, but then straight. And for example, I would grab a handle, and I'm going to talk about the handle very soon. That's very important, by the way, as well. But here, because of the chest support, you don't involve the lower back at all, because right now I can just feel the stretch in the upper back and the traps. No lower back involvement. And when I go upwards, I drive my chest into the bench, and that way I'm allowed to retract the shoulder blades. And once again, the difference, I can do this and just row like this. You can see a lot of people do this. Or really go upwards and create and force that blood into the traps. And that is what really causes the growth. But now I'm going to show you another thing. You really have to watch how my arms are aligned with this grip right here. So you can do two things. You want your arms to be properly aligned with the weight you're using. So this wants to go straight up pretty much, which means, like, just look at the biceps. If I'm grabbing this too narrow, I'm going upwards, look at what my biceps are doing. They're doing kind of like a bicep curl or a hammer curl like this. What you want to prevent is the bicep from doing too much work. So I look at the mirror right now, and you're fighting like a grip. If you go all the way up, you end up with a 90-degree angle between the forearm and the upper arm, because then you will hit this forearm is now straight with the weight. So this weight is being pulled down by gravity in a straight line down, and the forearm should also be in a straight line down. So the force is being put exactly through your arm as intended. So if you do this, I feel the biceps now. If you go way too much outside, you're gonna lose strength as you're further away from the center, and it just also feels just weird. So if you pull it in a little bit, and this is how to find the ultimate best grip width for you personally. I can't tell you, oh, you have to hold it here on the bar. No, test it out for yourself. Use no weight at all. Go all the way up. Look at your arm. See if it's 90 degrees, and then you know this is always going to be the best grip for me. And that way, all the complaints everybody has about, I feel my forearms and the leg pull down, I feel them before the actual back, those complaints then go away, because now the back will be the limiting factor, because the force is going through the arm instead of trying to hold on to the bar by like other muscles trying to help the lift. And then we have one more thing. We're gonna move, by the way, now to chest. And anybody know where the Smith machine is in this gym? Over there. All right, let's walk that way. How to do the bench press, but find the perfect width and the grip width. If everybody asks this, how do you find this? So if you listen to what I just said about the back, this applies to the chest as well. So I'm just gonna lay under it. And by the way, I always check, for example, if you want to know if the bench is straight below the bar, I always look at one thing that's straight on the bench. I just look at the bar, is it parallel to each other? Yes. Okay, then it's pretty much straight on there. Then it's flexible enough. All right. Okay. Now, there you can see this little stripe here or here. A lot of people, they refer to this as hold your finger there and that's how wide you should grab it. But I'm going to grab it now pretty wide to show you what happens when I go down. So if I go all the way down right now, how do my lower arms look? They don't look straight. The wrist is not stacked straight on the elbow. So how do you find your perfect grip width? Also here is to find, and usually I kind of know it, find when you go all the way down, so when you use movement, use no weight, go all the way down, and now look at my forearms, they are straight stacked, the wrist is stacked upon the elbow, and that gives you so much strength to push all the way up, and then go all the way down, to really push all the strength into the press without any weird tension going through the elbow. One more thing here is what you want to do, and this ties back to the first thing I said, full stretch here, but I see a lot of people, and no fault to them, I did it myself as well, they also go all the way up, but look what happens. I can just hold it forever like this. What does this mean? No tension on the muscle, it's all on the elbow. What do we want in bodybuilding? We want constant tension on the muscle to create muscle growth. So you go all the way down, you have to stretch, you go up, around here, right when you start to feel there's less tension in the chest, and then you go back down again. Basically, it kind of looks like this. It kind of feels like you're cheating, but you're actually creating more muscle mass. Why? Because if you go all the way up, especially when you're at your last weight, going to failure, the last few inches, we know, those are usually the most challenging to push out all the way, because that's pretty much, what does it look like if I do this? It's a tricep extension. Are we training the chest here or the triceps? So this is something you can think about with every movement. So always find the stretch in a movement and find out whether the contraction going all the way to there is worth it. In this case, it's not, because why? You push through those last few inches, it takes away a lot of energy from the movement, which you could have applied in a few more reps. The more reps you can do under heavy load will create muscle mass. But if you then put all the effort into this, yeah, you're pretty much not building any more chest because the tension is gone. You're putting energy into a muscle you're not training. You're taking away reps that you could have used to grow your muscle with. So all the food, especially in the off season, we're putting in so much trouble preparing, making it delicious, eating it, struggling to eat it, not even wanting to eat it, but we still do. Do you really want those calories to be wasted on something that provides no muscle mass? We want the maximum muscle mass for everything we put in our body. So make sure to apply little rules like this on exercises so that you can train intelligently, prevent calories from being wasted, but most importantly, why do you think people have trouble with their elbows, elbow pain, or shoulder pain, or even bicep tendon pain? Elbow pain could be caused by almost locking out here. Bicep pain could be caused by the TRO I did if I go too narrow, doing this with 100 kilos. I mean, it's going to cause some problems. Same thing goes for squats with knee pain, for example. If you go all the way down, that's good, but if you go all the way up and lock out on a leg press or a hack squat, tension is away from the legs, it's all on the joints, and day after day, month after month, year after year, you will notice the difference. I used to be the real old school bodybuilder where I did heavy skull crushers, like heavy dumbbells behind the head, back squats. You know, these are all exercises that are made famous by the best bodybuilders, but they are the best for a reason. Almost no matter what they do, they will grow and respond anyway, but unfortunately some of them are now not able to even work out anymore. And we probably know who we're all talking about. They were still incredible champions, but we could be champions and still do the same thing after our career, which is what I'm trying to do. And what is more fun than this? Working out without any pain. only the good lactic acid pain that we want to feel, the soreness afterwards. Not getting out of bed with a sore lower back or joints or this and that, or tendons. That is not what we want. So it's things like this that make your training so much more efficient. And this is how I've been able to work on weak points such as my own legs or the hamstrings or other things that used to be a weak point and are now starting to become stronger points in my physique, allow me to be incredible bodybuilders like Ramon Guino, for example, which I in a million years didn't think I could even challenge, and now was able to beat by applying simple tips like this in my training. It has nothing to do with training harder or doing more supplements or anything like this. It's about exactly training smarter, being smarter about my workout split right now. I have 4 days that I train and 1 day rest and repeat. So I first start with the chest, the side delts, and the triceps, just a standard workout I always have done. I lower the volume there. The next workout is going to be a quad dominant leg day with just quads, some hamstrings still, and the calves, always the calves of course. Then a back day, so just a regular mix of width and thickness, because my back is quite balanced right now. But then another leg day, but this time hamstring focused, and then a rest day. So I went from training everything equally to now, if you listen carefully, training the legs twice as much compared to the upper body. So for me, that is the ideal split. So it's more volume for the weaker muscle groups. So you actually find out by looking in the mirror, speaking to yourself, not being too mean to yourself, of course, but just seeing what can be a little bigger in my ideal vision, what am I doing right now. So if something is not as big or as developed as you want it to be, you need to put more effort into it, which means more volume. And those strong muscle groups would then have to decrease in volume because you can't just add and add and add, you have to recover, as we mentioned. So you decrease the strong muscle group volume, increase the weak muscle group volume, and then you train for a couple of weeks, but honestly a couple of months to really see the difference there. But that would be my tip for what for you could be an ideal starting workout split.
Now, following this little demonstration of the bench press and the best hand alignment for recruitment of the pectoral muscles and best strength in pressing movements on the bench, Wesley went on to take a few questions, and that's where it cut out again. So the next segments that you're going to see, I'm very grateful to Elena for sending a couple of clips through where Wesley was describing his best split. So this is the split that he uses currently, and it was in answer to questions about the best split where he basically says this ought to be individualized. So again, a lot of the advice that he gave in the talk through and seminar is very similar to the advice that I would give on such things as you've seen on my channel. So that was one of the most important questions. Another one was about tracking progress on gaining. So he described tracking his body weight every single day and taking an average of that to check that he wasn't gaining body weight at the rate of greater than about 0.5% of the overall body weight and not getting too out of condition in the off season. That was one of the other key things that was said and not captured here. Another one of the key points that was mentioned and explained by Wesley was related to what you can do to improve all of your progress by doing nothing. And that was his way of explaining how it's really important to optimize sleep and aim for 8 hours, and that's doing nothing that will accelerate all of your progress. And he went into depth describing the challenges he's had with 2 young kids and his Olympia preparations, and they're only just getting a sleep schedule working really nicely for the young family there, and that's going to assist his progress going into the Olympia this year, and he explained all of that. So those were the main points missed, but I hope you enjoyed the episode today with the interview and all of the main seminar. I'd like to wish Wesley and all of his team and all of his family all the best for this year, and thanks for all of the inspiration with the YouTube content and with the contest success. Many congratulations on all of that. Many thanks for providing all of this for all the crew at Zone Gym, and I look to produce more content like this in the near future. Any questions, pop them below. It's Sam here. See you soon. Cheers.